Hello and welcome to Pain in the Podcass, your place to find out everything you've ever wanted to know about pain. My name's Dr. Joseph Parsons and I'm joined by the wonderful Don Widjasoria and Dr. Joshua Craw. And today, we're going to be talking about growing pains. Welcome in. Hello and welcome to Pain in the Podcass, your place to find out everything you ever wanted to know about pain. My name is Dr. Joseph Parsons and I'm joined by the wonderful Don Widjasoria and Dr. Joshua Craw, and today we're going to be talking about growing pains.
Pain
in the podcast. Hello everyone and welcome to Pain in the Podcast. We are going to start off today, as we start off every other episode, with a fact about ourselves and what we've learned about ourselves this week, just so that you can get a better idea of who we are. So, do you want me to start? Shall I start?
Sure. You start.
Alright, so a fact about myself is that I have had my eye rotated. My left eye rotated. Well, that's what the doctor said when I was like 7 or 8 years old and getting a squint surgery to fix my squint.
Oh.
Yeah. And so the way that he described it, he probably dumbed it down just a little teeny tiny bit. But yeah, he's just said that he rotated my eye within my eye socket.
Wow.
Surgically or?
Surgically, yes.
What's the... Alright, I'm just trying to get the orientation of this. Are we talking like rotating so your eyeball is moving up and like your...
No.
Imagine your pupil laterally.
Laterally.
So your eye was off to one side.
I was very boz-eyed. So one eye was going to the left eye.
Okay.
So they rotated it so that it was more centrally aligned.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
Josh is just trying to say you can move one eye on demand. Either.
No, there's a trick to it. So what you do is like you look towards the left, and then as you're doing that, you quickly look to the right or something, and it looks like your eyes is going in different directions.
No, but he's literally holding his in a different direction.
Oh. Okay,
yeah,
this guy's insane.
Yeah, maybe for some bonus content I might just show that. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I go next?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, my fact about myself is that I go through phases of really kind of obsessively researching different historical figures. So I get really into reading about a certain person from history, and then for maybe like 3 months, I'll just watch all the YouTube videos that exist about them. So far, that has been Bobby Kennedy, Malcolm X, and famous swing dancer Frankie Manning, and Ella Fitzgerald as well. So I'm now waiting for my next one. I haven't been hit by a wave of obsession yet, but I'm just waiting for the next one to hit.
Can we pick who you
I
choose
think we
next?
should pick.
Okay, you can... Alright, you know what? Listeners, you can vote in and see which you want my next historical obsession to be, and I will try my best to read all the books and watch all the YouTube about that person.
Amy Poehler.
Ooh. I mean, she's not very historical, but...
She's not, no, but...
She's very much contemporary.
She is.
I do like
she
her
just
work.
came to mind.
Is it Blades of Fury? Blades of Glory?
Cool.
I was thinking Parks and Rec.
I was thinking Parks and
Well, yeah,
Rec.
obviously. I was going a bit more obscure.
Like SNL. Yeah.
Okay. Is it my turn? Are we
It
on
is your
learning
turn,
of
Josh.
facts?
Facts still.
Facts, okay. Facts about myself is that I have a very large tattoo. Goes from my right hip to my right ankle.
It is a dragon, and it's really impressive.
It is a dragon, and within that dragon is the mathematical symbol pi.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
Yeah, because I love pi. Anybody that's seen any pictures of me can see that that's true.
And dragons also like pies.
Apparently so, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And
There's some red bits to it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of red, bit of
The
flame.
colouring's really good considering how long ago you had it. Like, it's a well done tattoo. It's lasted, like, the colours are still pretty vibrant for such a long time.
Yeah, it's been over 10 years since I've had it.
And you're vaguely thinking about having more, is that right?
Debating it, but you know, like I'm a doctor, like I think I could get away with it, but I wouldn't mind a sleeve. Yeah.
I could just buy you a jumper.
I mean, I'm wearing a jumper, but yeah.
No.
Oh, sorry. I thought when you said jumper, I mean those. I thought you meant those skin tight things that you wear that look like sleeves.
Oh, no.
I thought you were going the opposite direction.
Like on
No.
Big Bang Theory
Yeah.
when Raj wears them.
Exactly, yeah. Yep.
No, really. No, I wasn't. Anyway, Don, what have you
what
learned
have
about
I-
yourself this week?
I've learned that. So, in case one of you've listened to one of our previous episodes, I mentioned that I have a phobia of birds.
It got mentioned twice, in fact.
They got mentioned twice. Oh, okay. It's okay. Unnecessary. But
it's another episode of Owl or Train. That really is a throwback for anyone who's listening in.
But after visiting Denmark recently, I noticed that I think I might be starting to come around to the idea of pigeons and
Eating
birds
them,
in
or-
general. So no, not eating them, because that's still weird. But just having them exist within my vicinity. I think maybe the Danish pigeons are slightly less aggressive than the ones in England, because they just leave you alone. They don't really come to you that often like the ones in London do. Like they're persistent.
Oh, the ones in London, they've got like missing a leg,
Yeah.
hopping along. Like, look, dude.
They are disgusting.
Alright, geezer, go bread.
My question is, right, sorry, Don, just to hijack this, but like, have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
No, don't exist.
Yes.
Drones.
I've seen, well, actually not in this country. I've seen them back when I used to live in Saudi Arabia, because my mum, we had like, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode, but we had like these ladders built into the house, at the wall of the house, so that you can get onto
Siege
the
warfare.
top. I don't know what it was for, but so pigeons would often nest in there, and unfortunately, quite a few little babies would just fall out.
Oh shit.
So
Like
one
so when
day,
they try and fly the nest.
exactly.
Yeah.
So one day, my mum saw one of these little babies, was a little injured pigeon baby discussing things, on the floor, and brought it inside. Whilst I was at school, put it in a little cage kind of thing, and just put it in my room for me to walk into after coming back from school, thinking that that would cure me. But no, it definitely made things worse.
Exposure
So
therapy.
yeah, I've seen a disgusting little baby pigeon.
Yeah, they're not pretty. One of our friends keeps pigeons like in her house. She has 2 pet pigeons, and
These are lovely people. I've met them.
They are really lovely
but
people.
They have chosen a very odd pet.
they have chosen our pet. But they're excellent pets. One of them they found it was a young pigeon, and they found it injured, and they had to take it home. And they might correct me on this story, but they had to take it home in a McDonald's bag, and so it was in a bag that you would put French fries in. So the pigeon is called Frenchie.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's
Yeah.
really cute. But yeah, they have seen baby pigeons because they're pigeon enthusiasts. Pigeon fanciers, is it? Is that what
Yeah.
you call them?
There's a pigeon fanciers. There's also a condition called pigeon fancier's lung, which is a inflammatory lung condition, autoimmune issue, which causes real breathing issues.
Caused by pigeon fancying? Like,
Yeah.
is it something like a...
It's the allergen
Allergen,
within
yeah.
their feathers that
See,
cause a reaction.
disgusting.
Yeah, I can just imagine just young Don just walking into his room and just being terrified
I was probably like 5 or 6.
or traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely traumatized.
Yeah, you've been through a lot with pigeons, haven't
Yeah. But I think, so what I noticed was I wasn't flinching. Flinching? Is that the right word?
you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the right word. I wasn't flinching when they were coming next to me, when they were like walking beside my feet. I held my ground. I told them, no, you will not peck my ankles today. So, because that's my main worry. I don't
You said it in Danish as well.
I did.
You did.
I'm not going to attempt that.
We'll get that cut in the shit.
Yeah, for those of you on Patreon, you can see Don telling pigeons not to peck his ankles in Danish.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. What have you learnt?
I have learned that I find furniture shopping very stressful.
Oh, I love it.
No, I see. If I had lots of money, I think it would be a lot better. But we've been trying to do a lot of furnishing of the house from like second-hand shops and like big charity furniture warehouses, and it's the time you have to invest. And then you go to a certain like furniture warehouse and you're like, oh, I really like that, but I'm not sure it's the one. So then you go somewhere else and then you think, no, it was the one, and then you go back and it's not there anymore.
Yeah,
stressful.
roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, but can thoroughly recommend, if anyone's in the northwest of England, Bygone Times. It is a 6 warehouse, they call it like vintage, but it's not really vintage. It's just old shit, but there's loads of furniture and it's very affordable and very pretty. If you like Art Deco, there you go. And they don't even sponsor us, so there you go. They should.
Please.
Josh?
Yeah, so something I've learned about myself. Actually, very recently, we was talking to a great chap, Chris Bridgeford, was it? Yeah, Chris. And we was discussing about sort of distractions and how that can help with pain. One thing I've learned and sort of reflected on since that is that actually I use that quite a lot myself. So, for example, fishing for me.
Yeah.
You know, you go out, you're concentrating for several hours, trying to catch fish. Always catch and release, by the way. And yeah, it helps with pain. Helps distract. It's a distraction. It sort of keeps you occupied. Yeah.
Can people on our social media see the picture of you with the biggest fish you've ever caught?
Well, maybe. If I'm feeling generous, we'll see.
Okay. It's an excellent picture. Josh's sister for his birthday bought him a large poster of himself with a fish.
I think it's quite sweet, you know?
It's incredibly sweet, but both of us were kind of thinking, where do you put this? Like, do you have a picture in your own house above your mantelpiece of yourself with a fish?
I don't know where I'm going to put it, but it's going to go somewhere.
You can put it in my house. We'll have a picture of you with a fish.
It's quite large.
It is quite large. I like it.
Okay, well, we'll consider that. I wouldn't give away a present, but yeah.
So today we're going to talk about something that's very close to my heart in this episode, and that is growing pains. Now, for those of you who've been listening to this, you know that when we started recording this podcast way back when, it's not very way back when for you, it's only about 6 months, but this has taken us a couple of years to get up on its feet, which we'll talk more about in a bit. But my back pain started when I was 15 years old, and when I was seeing GPs for the first time about my back pain, I was referred to physiotherapy and told I had growing pains. And any of you who've seen me in real life will know I'm quite lanky. I'm over 6'3". I like to say 6'4", but I'm not quite. So, as my fiance regularly reminds me, I'm not quite as tall as I tell everyone I am. And so to you at home, this might sound like the doctor's made a sensible diagnosis. But today we're going to kind of bust a little bit of myths for you and help you realise that growing pains actually are not related to growing, and that this diagnosis was totally inappropriate. And we want you to understand that, particularly our younger listeners who are maybe in that situation where they've been told they've got growing pains. We want to help you separate what a normal growing pain is, what it should look like, from maybe what you've been fobbed off with.
And for those of you who know me personally, you'd know that I have probably the exact opposite stature of Joe. I am fairly short, so I've never really experienced, again, this might be a myth, but I don't remember experiencing any so-called growing pains. So can we start by explaining what these are?
First of all, I thought he was just going to stop at saying, I didn't experience any growth.
Don was born at 5'6", and he's never grown since.
Yeah, I peaked very early.
Yeah, but talking about growing pains. So growing pains are a condition of exclusion, really. That's where we rule out any other conditions first, and if nothing else can explain symptoms, we call it growing pains. I mean, there are specific traits to growing pains, but I think we'll discuss those, won't we?
Yeah. So the first thing to point out with growing pains, like one of the most common traits, is that they're almost exclusively found in people's limbs, right? And almost exclusively of that, they're found in the lower limb. So it's found in people's legs. In 90% of people with growing pains, it tends to happen in both legs. So like you don't tend to have it on one side. And the way in which the pain presents, we'll talk a little bit more about over the course of this episode, but it's not usually constant. So that's one thing to note at the beginning. This is an episode, a podcast about chronic pain, and obviously chronic pain doesn't necessarily have to mean constant. There's variable definitions of it, but it's actually pretty uncommon for people with growing pains to have pains every day. So there's a study that shows that only 5% of people with growing pains actually experience pain every day.
Yeah, so I mean, if I saw a child I'm an emergency medicine doctor now, so like if I was to see a child that was coming in, they've had pain every day, they've come in because actually parents are worried about it, I'm going to be doing bloods, I'm probably going to be referring to paediatrics at that point, because it's not something that should happen in a child, particularly if there's no history of like trauma in terms of like, I don't know, falling from a tree or anything like that.
Yeah. It's quite interesting though, because with growing pains, there's a study that, so there's different types of research study that you can get, and some of them are like reviews, so they will do a study about other people's studies. So they're looking at what the kind of overall field says about about something. And there was a study that looked at 145 different papers about growing pains and looked at the most common traits of them. And one thing that's really interesting about growing pains is that there's no consistent physical symptoms, like in terms of like examination. So there's no like reduced muscle strength or reduced range of movement. There's no radiographic signs, so things that would show up on an X-ray. And there's no lab findings that are consistent, so like differences in blood tests. And so, like Josh said at the beginning, it's a diagnosis of exclusion. So that means that basically once you've ruled everything out that might be more sinister and more kind of worrying, that's what you end up with. So yeah.
Yeah, and it is quite difficult, particularly with children. You need to rule out those red flag symptoms. So, like, for example, bone cancer, it's incredibly rare, but it does occur. So, like, if it was unilateral symptoms, that's something that needs to be investigated.
Unilateral? What do you mean by unilateral
one-sided,
symptoms?
So instead of, like, both legs, for example, one leg.
So
Right, okay.
bilateral, both sides, unilateral, one side.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so, Don, do you want to be the one who is responsible for like busting the myth, like about why growing pains is probably a pretty bad name for them?
Yes, so 84.3% of children with growing pain had it in both legs, but there was no significant correlation between accelerated growth within 2 years and growing pains.
So that means that 2 years before and 2 years after that study of kids with growing pains, there was no link between the rate of growth and the pain. So growing pains is the wrong term for it. We use it in this example just to kind of make sure you understand what we're talking about, but actually there's no link to growth.
Well, I mean, is it just maybe just a term to make people understand that, okay, these are just normal pains that happen when children are aging?
Or is it a term that's just stuck around from when it was first conceptualized?
Yeah. I think it's probably more likely the latter, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you might have nailed it there, Don.
Now, one of the things that, like I say, this is quite a personal topic to me, and I was bounced back and forth a lot with the diagnosis of growing pains before people started to maybe take more seriously that my pain might be chronic and might have more to it than that. But not only was my pain in my back, so completely irrelevant to where what so-called growing pains occur in, they usually occur in the limbs. The common age of presentation is before the age of 12. So between the ages of 3 and 12, depending on what study you look at, is when you start to see growing pains. So if you're listening out there and you've got a child who is experiencing pain and they're going to the doctors and they're having no symptoms on scans, they're having no symptoms on blood tests, and they can't have any abnormal physical exams, that happens in about 25% of kids that you get these growing pains. So obviously it's not ideal and it's distressing for you and your child, but that's actually pretty normal. Whereas if your kids or if you are starting to experience that pain at 15 or 18, you might still be growing physically, but like we said, there's no relationship between that, and it's very abnormal for people to present with what we call growing pains after the age of 12.
So how about we kind of transition, look into the causes of growing pains?
Yeah, and it's something that I haven't, like, it's not something we cover very much in medical school. I think maybe in one slide in one lecture.
Yeah.
And then during my paediatric rotation in F2, a couple of patients come in with growing pains, but it's always something that's sort of like glossed over. We didn't really have deep discussions about it. But from what we can see that some potential causes including like hypermobility, overpronation of the feet, valgus tilt of the knees, and scoliosis.
Valgus, that's a funny word. What does that mean?
So this is really difficult to sort of explain without the medium of visual aids.
Oh, I can do this. I can take this one.
Go on.
Knock knees.
Not knees.
Knocked knees.
Knocked
If you
knees.
hear about people talk about knock knees, where your knees, so your knees kind of angle in towards each other. So from your hip to your knee goes inwards, and then from your knee to your feet goes outwards.
Right,
So it's
okay.
like kind of like a
X.
pointy leg.
Right.
Yeah, so you're almost making an X with your
Yeah.
leg. Exactly. So there's valgus and varus. So varus would be the opposite, where you're kind of making like a wide N shape, like a lowercase n shape, whereas valgus is the sort of knock knee tilting.
So it's bow-legged is varus, and then bivalgus would be knock-kneed.
Exactly. A couple of other terms in there. Shall I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Take them. So pronation of the feet, you've got things, you might have heard of people talking about prone before, so like laying on your front is prone. So if you turn your feet so you're kind of flattening the arches of your foot inwards, then that's known as pronating.
So when the toes are kind of pointing towards each other a bit more.
Not pointing towards each other. Imagine if you try and rolled your ankles towards each other, so that the inside of your ankles, those like pointy bits on the inside of your ankles, imagine you were trying to make them touch each other.
Right, okay.
That would be pronating. Supinating is the opposite, so that's being supine. So maybe you'll have heard a doctor talk about being supine. That's being on your back. And so if you imagine that you're trying to turn your feet over, so the top of your foot was upside down, so you're trying to put the soles of your feet together.
So that your ankle's pointing upwards.
The inside of your ankle is pointing upwards, so you're trying to put the soles of your feet together. That would be supinating. So if your feet naturally kind of flatten their arches and your ankle bones on the inside are almost trying to point at each other, then that would be pronation. And then, Josh, do you want to take scoliosis?
Yeah, so scoliosis, effectively, it's where the spine isn't straight. But ordinarily, you do have a lordosis and a kyphosis. That's the natural curvature of the spine. So where it sort of dips in your lower back and curves on your upper back. But scoliosis is on the alternate axis, so like side to side, effectively. So look your back almost in its severe cases looking like a snake.
All right, interesting.
Yeah. So
scoliosis.
Nice.
Cool. There's some other potential causes as well I found quite interesting. One of them, they found that people who had persistent growing pains over 5 years, so long-term persistent growing pains, because usually they tend to clear up in a year or two, had a lower pressure pain threshold. So basically that's a lab test where I apply pressure through this machine to a specific part of your body and you tell me when you think it starts hurting. And so the people who said that it started hurting at lower pressures, so who could tolerate less pressure, it was more common for those people to have persistent growing pains. So potentially actually these growing pains might be a naturally lower pain threshold. That's only from one study, but it's just interesting to kind of think about these things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we sort of looked at as well was like vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah. So
it's one of the potential causes. So like in one specific study, I think it was 104 out of 120 children had a deficiency in vitamin D, and 25% had a formal deficiency. So like a quarter of those definitely had low vitamin D. And actually, vitamin D was found to like significantly significantly reduce the pain.
So if they were given like supplements, for example.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh wow! So would that affect people in certain parts of the globe?
Yeah, I guess that's why we're all fucking in pain in the UK.
Yeah.
Because it's so grey here.
Yeah. So like just going on a slight side here, which is like vitamin supplementation. Unless your doctor's told you to sort of that you need a specific vitamin replacement or what have you. Realistically, multivitamins don't do a great deal.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'd recommend as a doctor that has a benefit is vitamin D if you're living in the Northern Hemisphere. So if you're living in the north of England, you're not getting much sun, that sort of thing, vitamin D is useful. But the rest of it, if you have a healthy, varied diet, you should get enough of what you need. Unless, obviously, you've seen a doctor and they've told you that you need iron or folate or any other vitamin or mineral.
Yeah. Thinking about the vitamin D, something that ties in quite well with that is that another paper looked at bone density in people with growing pains, and they found that a lot of these kids who had growing pains had reduced bone density in their lower legs, and so that ties in quite well with vitamin D. So vitamin D is, if you've watched the Petit-Falou adverts, which is where I get all of my information from, that's where vitamin D helps to support bone health and helps to keep like sort of higher levels of bone density, keeps your bones nice and strong, and so these two things tie in quite well. So that has quite strong evidence to suggest that that's a potential cause of growing pains. But I guess when that's kind of all the causes that there's literature for, but how can we treat growing pains? I guess that will be something that a lot of listeners are thinking about for them or for their kids. Yeah, Josh, do you want to tell us a bit more about how we can treat that?
I mean, the treatment's quite basic if we're being completely honest. So massages, heat, paracetamol, ibuprofen, these are all recommended by the NHS in terms of management of growing pains. But there's basically no literature to suggest treatment with any real evidence. And as a doctor, I like to treat based on an evidence base.
Yeah.
So I think we're just effectively just treating symptoms. Like even what we mentioned with vitamin D, we're not really pumping these kids full of vitamin D either.
No.
Like just empirically. However, if your child is experiencing pain, they do need to be seen by a medical professional. Just because we've mentioned here now that growing pains, we're giving you the symptoms and what have you, that by no means gives you a diagnosis. You do need to be seen by a health professional to rule out those other serious causes of pain in childhood.
I think as well, though, if they do rule out all of those other serious causes and you do end up with a diagnosis of growing pains for yourself, if you're a young listener, or for your children, it's important to remember, like with chronic pain, we often get in this mindset that it's pretty hopeless. Like there's often so many occasions when you're told there's no treatment for what you're experiencing. Like I think we've all been told there's nothing we can do for you by clinicians before.
Yeah.
And some clinicians will have different ideas, but certain people have just been like, there's nothing I can do for you.
It's just something you have to live with now.
Exactly. But growing pains, the good thing is that the vast majority of people's cases resolve within about 2 years. So it's not any easier on the child, and it's not any easier on the parent having to deal with their child suffering. But like you continuing to care for your child, these ideas that the NHS recommend, massage, paracetamol, ibuprofen, like heat treatments, for example, all these things are a good way that you can keep supporting your child and making them feel taken care of. But hopefully, we are all keeping our fingers crossed here, your child will be one of the vast majority who get better quite quickly. Yeah.
So speaking of symptoms, so apart from kind of the physical pain that you might experience in your knees, your limbs, are there any other associated pains that you might experience?
There's a cool study actually. So obviously, like there's the psychological impact of that both on the child and on their parents. But there was a really cool paper that showed that kids that have growing pains have significantly higher chances of developing migraine or headache disorders. And we have no idea why. But there just seems to be this really clear link. And so again, like going back to this idea of a lower pain threshold maybe being associated, maybe there are kids out there who are having these growing pains who are more susceptible, like their nervous system is more naturally kind of wound up and kind of more vulnerable to them experiencing pain and experiencing migraine. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to kind of address the stigma that surrounds this. I think there can be a bit of competition in the chronic pain community, particularly when people are kind of new on this pain journey. They want to go, my pain is worse than everyone else's. Like, and this is not everyone, God, don't think that at all. But there are some people who think my pain is worse than other people's. They don't get what I'm going through.
It's fairly common. It's just human nature, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't think having a lower pain threshold is a bad thing. Like, I don't think it's something you should be ashamed of. Like, if certain things hurt you and don't hurt other people, that's just your nervous system's way of dealing with your environment. Like, if for example, you've got complex regional pain syndrome, getting in the shower can feel like people are stabbing you with needles. And why would you ever think someone is lesser for that? I think it's a weird kind of bravado that people, not just people in chronic pain, but general people develop as well, thinking, oh, well, if I've got a low pain threshold, that means I'm weak somehow. But I think we need to kind of maybe address that stigma a little bit. Interestingly
enough, I think every patient I ever see, when I'm asking about pain, says, I've got a high pain threshold, but I think it's a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Just throwing that out there, just anecdotally, but like, yeah.
I think everyone wants to think that though, don't they?
Yeah.
Is that you don't want it because it's been drilled into us that this idea of weakness if you've got a low pain threshold.
Yeah, you don't want to feel ashamed or guilty about experiencing pain. And so with that, I think we are coming towards the end of that segment. I know it might have been a shorter episode today, but we want to kind of talk about the growing pains of starting a podcast, of which we've experienced quite a few.
Yes. I think it was a good opportunity now to kind of segue these two things together, and it's very easy for you as a listener to think, God, they're so slick and well made all the time.
I don't know why you would think anything else.
No, you definitely think that. Please think that.
Very professional.
Obviously, like, you'll see that as we go on, the episodes get more confident. You'll see that maybe the content gets better or the way in which we deliver it gets better. But there are a lot of growing pains with setting up a podcast, particularly one about a topic that's maybe not super common or popular. Is like, I don't know about you guys, but how many pain podcasts do you listen to on a regular basis?
Me?
Yeah.
0.
Nope.
Yeah, I listen to one, which is Airing Pain, which is a really good, super factual podcast from a charity group up in Scotland. But I'm one of quite a small number, I think, who are listening every week to that. And that's no discredit, like that's no sort of shade on them. They're doing an amazing job. But I think getting things like this into people in a way that they feel is enjoyable to listen to rather than a chore is tough.
For me, I think it's just the organisation, isn't it? Like, yep, we're releasing these episodes every other week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's been a big gap in between us filming. So, dropping the curtain there, we film these in bulk over the course of a weekend every few months or so. Well, we try to.
Yeah, mostly because we've kind of all of our lives have changed fairly vastly.
Yeah.
In a very very short period of time. We've all moved to different parts of the country. So some of us have started new roles. So yeah, it's been difficult to get the time. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we endeavour, don't we? We've got a nice back catalogue, haven't we? So
yeah,
hopefully we'll keep going, Phil.
And yeah, so with our very busy schedules, it's sometimes difficult to just iron out those little niggles that we have with creating a podcast.
Yeah.
Deciding on the format, practicing our delivery, because it's not natural for me to just talk into a camera. I don't think it's natural for the two of you either.
No, it took me. I think it was 7 or 8 attempts yesterday to get an introduction right. On the episodes.
It took me like 4 or 5.
I aged so much during that part.
At the end, we were calling each other different names.
I eventually called Joe James, which
just makes no
It's not his
sense.
name.
We don't even know a James.
No.
Yeah, I think as well, like one of the problems that we've maybe faced is that it's really lucky that we all sit on both sides of the fence in terms of like from a clinical point of view or like patient facing point of view, but also from a chronic pain experience point of view. But it can be really hard to get sort of guests before you've released episodes. So we're actually recording this before episode 1 has even been released. And we've had some amazing guests already, don't get me wrong. We've had some fantastic guests. But there's a lot of guests as well who maybe we haven't had any sort of working relationship with before that we've been maybe like scared to contact because we've got no reputation yet. We've got no kind of legs to stand on.
This is another thing. I'll often forget what I'm about to say when the camera's on. Oh, actually, no, I do that all the time in my everyday life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, getting used to those kinds of little things.
I mean, the editing, Joe, you've come across some growing pains there, haven't you? Particularly
Yes.
in terms of people saying things that just are non sequiturs.
People say things at the same time, and then it being really difficult to edit the audio. Wouldn't you agree, Josh?
Yes.
Yes.
So the thing that Josh is referencing, so editing is always a barrel of laughs, right? And as much as it's hell to try and make sure that things make sense and fit together and to deal with like mispronunciations or whatever, the thing that Josh is referencing is that in the first 2 episodes, there's a couple of sentences that Don says that make 0 sense, right? So if you're a true Pain in the Podcast fan and you've been here since day 1, or even if you've just gone back and listened to those episodes, you might have seen some sentences where you're like, what the fuck is he on about?
I do this a lot.
But the problem with the editing was, if I cut those sentences out, the continuity errors are just completely, like, the whole podcast sounds really odd. Like, it just completely doesn't work. And so I've had to leave these bits in. And so there's, if you do subscribe to our Patreon, you see that we do a weekly show called The Breakdown, which is, or not weekly, fortnightly show, because that's when the episodes are. We do this show called The Breakdown, and that is a breakdown of each episode that we do. And in that first couple of breakdowns, we spoke about some of these sentences and showed you clips of them. But without them, it would make no sense at all. So, yeah, editing has definitely been...
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, one of the things, actually, just moving on to another thought. One of the things we've really struggled with, and hopefully you will not have known we struggle with because you'll love our theme tune. Theme tune was really hard.
Yeah, we had to bounce between a few ideas. Joe had the pleasure of contacting some record labels to get the rights for one of the theme tunes that we had as an idea. And yeah, it was difficult, right, Joe?
Yes, I had quotes of several £1,000s to use a song that has 4,500 listens on Spotify, but it comes from a parody album released by a very famous comedian in the States. And so the problem that comes with that is that people assume that that means that the album is worth a lot of money to get the rights to. But of those 4,500 listens, I'm probably 1,000. So I could have made it cheaper for myself if I just hadn't listened to it. If I'd have listened to it once and then been like, cool, can we have the rights? But so that didn't work out, as you can tell by the fact that we don't have that as a theme song.
Well, yeah, you'll never know. Maybe if we ever do a live sort of like just talking to people
In person.
in a forum sort of area, maybe we could just sort of share that absolutely excellent song, which would fit perfectly for this podcast.
It would have fit perfectly. But so we had to work around, and I think that's like for anyone out there who is thinking about doing any form of sort of content creation, it's the workaround. Everything is a workaround. You come in with the best plans and you think you've thought of every eventuality, and then something else comes up.
I mean, and I'm sure that we're going to find a lot more issues or stumbling blocks. And if anybody at home feels like there's something that we're missing that would really improve sort of the viewer experience, please get in touch with us.
Yeah, paininthepodcass@gmail.com. Please send in any suggestions that you have. You can contact us on Instagram. You can contact us on Facebook.
What is our Instagram handle?
@paininthepodcass. It really is that simple. We managed to get there before anyone else did. And if you go to @paininthepodcast, you will get a thing that says, you're in the wrong place.
Wow.
Wow.
Holy crap.
I had to set up 2 accounts for that, and I'm very technologically illiterate. It's funny, in previous episodes, Josh and Don have spoken about how I have been helping them with technology, and really, like, it's all a fad. It's a facade. I'm terrible at technology. Don's actually the one who's good with technology.
No, I just rely on... Actually, no, I'm not. I'm terrible with technology. I just do spend a lot of time on it, that's all. But no, you've done a really good job so far.
I mean, I'm in my 30s. I don't know what this is. I remember dial-up.
Josh thinks the microphone is food at first. He was like, this looks like this. It's fluffy.
What food is fluffy?
I don't know. That's the worst texture it could have been for food.
Cotton candy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yum, 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 yum. Yeah. Any other growing pains we want to talk about? Any other things, stumbling blocks we've hit?
No, Joe. I can't really think of any other growing pains. I mean, I'm sure there are loads, but nothing comes to mind.
Well, I think that leads us to one other thing, actually, which is Egyptian laxative of the week.
And this week, it is.
I think it's castor oil, isn't it?
It is castor oil.
Why is castor oil pronounced castor oil but spelt differently?
It's not. That's
It's
a
not.
misspelling
Joe's
in
just
my
spelled
notes.
Well, it's growing pains.
Castor oil. When I read this, I was like, is that the stuff that goes in Castrol GTX?
As in the engine oil?
As in the engine oil?
Yeah,
is
I've
it
always thought
castor
it
oil?
was.
I don't know.
Should we Google?
Let's have this. Let's have.
Well, if it's good enough to fuel your car, you can fuel your body.
Castrol GTX.
Is what the
What's
Egyptians were
in the
thinking.
Castrol GTX? This is probably a really stupid question, but like,
Well, you can buy it from Holland and Barrett.
what, castor oil or castrol?
Castor oil.
Castor oil, yeah, okay.
Can we just say
Wow. Okay.
the
So
marketing department for Castrol have done a very good job.
look, I'm just looking at a website which is somewhat reasonable, and it says that the full benefits of the use of castor oil, which is 1, it's a powerful laxative. So this, for the first time, this is one that doesn't go up; it goes down.
Ah, right, yes.
Yep. It's a natural moisturizer, and actually, it may promote wound healing.
I think it is often found in most body lotions and moisturisers.
Well, I think maybe the Egyptians run something there, because it is a laxative.
Where does it come from?
The castor
flower?
plant, isn't it?
It's a vegetable oil, apparently. Also, sorry, yeah, I have just Googled. There is literally zero correlation or link between castor oil and castrol.
Yes, it's made from a plant called Ricinus communis, from the seeds of that. In ancient Egypt, castor oil was used as fuel for medicinal purposes, like treating eye irritation and inducing labour and pregnancy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Right, should we do a book review before we finish?
What's
Indeed.
the book of the week?
The book of this episode is The War on Pain by Scott Fishman. Scott Fishman is a interventional pain medicine doctor in the States. Interventional pain medicine is the idea of doing things like injections, doing things like epidural type of injections, sort of giving breakthrough medications for people with pain. And so, as you've heard on the podcast from us, like, it's not necessarily the best way to manage chronic pain, but there are some instances when things like injections are good to use. And he has some really convincing arguments in that book about the use of interventional pain medicine. And I think, as with everything, there's two sides to every coin. But it's well worth a read. It's really well written, very clear, very sort of backed up by research, and written in a way that's very digestible as well. So if you do want to know a little bit more, if you still feel like you're at that point in your pain journey where you really want that medical cure, you don't want to kind of embrace other elements of kind of your pain management, if you still think that medicine is the right way for you, then maybe it's worth having a look at that.
The fact that it's digestible is really important to me. I can't read a book if it uses a lot of big words.
Yeah.
It just bores me out.
Yeah.
Because I have to Google what those words mean every 2 minutes.
And then you just end up, it's not enjoyable. You can't switch off while reading a book anymore.
I'm currently reading a book called The Glamour Boys, about how I think LGBTQ men helped win World War II. And yeah, a fantastic book, fantastic topic, really informative, but so many big words I've never seen before. And I'm like well into my 20s.
Oh, Alan Turing, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what a man.
Mm.
Being based up in the Northwest as well.
Yeah.
That's where Baby was built, the first computer.
Yep.
How exciting.
This one doesn't actually talk about Alan Turing. There are other members of
I had
Parliament.
assumed so.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Very interesting. Okay.
Moving on.
And with that, should we give a brief mention about our Patreon?
Yes. So yeah, we do have a Patreon where you can see loads of behind the scenes footage, episodes of The Breakdown, where we discuss previous episodes, go over things that we've learnt, new facts that we might want to include, and very, very fun challenges like cooking challenges. Little sneak peek there.
Josh playing the recorder
Josh
in front of an audience.
Him clapping his elbows, and yes, that is the thing that's possible.
In front of himself.
Front.
Excessively rotating his shoulders. I can't, it's special. It's truly phenomenal to watch.
Yes. Phenomenal, mesmerising, confusing. And also you'll get to see our 20-hour challenge, where I am learning how to be an expert in slam poetry, which is going swimmingly.
See, Don feels like he was very hard done by, but he didn't have to do an art gallery night. So, you know, we all had our burdens to bear.
Yes, Joe is doing what?
Palette knife painting. So if you haven't already seen the results of our 20-hour challenge, you will see that I am not a skilled artist, and I think I came out at the other end a not very skilled artist.
And Josh, what about you?
Well, I'm learning Recorder.
We've already mentioned this, yeah. Yeah, so you can see a lot more content there. And with that, it's time to say goodbye.
So we'll see you in a fortnight.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Take care.